The Confederate flag is a point of hot debate and controversy. That is because we are in a time where we are reevaluating our history. Also, we are striving to be a society that is both diverse and accepting of all of its people. That being said, the Confederate flag has a negative connotation, now has a negative connotation to the majority of the people in the United States. This may be partly due to the fact that a lot of people that have committed hate crimes use the Confederate flag as a symbol for the message that they're trying to publicize. For example, Dylan Roof, who shot and murdered 9 people in a church in South Carolina. After the fact, it was found that he used the Confederate flag as a symbol for what he believed in, which was white supremacy. The governor at the time, Nikki Haley, said, "But people saw it, the Confederate flag, as service, sacrifice, and heritage. But after he did that, you can't overcome that." This quote exemplifies the shift in perception around the Confederate flag. I will be arguing that the federal government needs to prohibit the Confederate flag on government property. This topic is relevant because a lot of states that use the Confederate flag or any version of the Confederate flag have recently been receiving a lot of pressure to reevaluate their flag and change their flag. Also, the Confederate flag being hung in general, not just on government property, has also been getting a lot of heat and a lot of public outroar to have flags taken down and not have it be allowed. I'm a reliable source to talk about this topic because 2 years ago, when I was a junior in high school, I had to do research on this topic because our class was doing a debate within our class. Even after the debate, I still kept tabs on the nationwide debate surrounding this topic because I believe that this topic is extremely important for our nation. Also, during spring break, I went to Mississippi with the spirituality class, and on one of the days we were there, we went to a Mississippi courthouse, and at this courthouse, I saw the Mississippi flag, which I didn't realize at the time had the Confederate flag pasted onto the state flag. Our tour guide told us about the discussion and debate surrounding the Confederate flag in Mississippi, so I got to get a little bit of a local's perspective. The main points in support of the federal government prohibiting the Confederate flag on government property are that it divides the nation, is a symbol of white supremacy, and has negative economic implications. My first point is very straightforward. The Confederate flag itself divides the nation in a time where we are already extremely polarized. Too much of this can and has caused the South to isolate itself from the rest of the country, while the rest of the country, after the Civil War, has been trying to reconnect and reconcile what happened during the Civil War and become an actual union. According to Real Life Politics, the Texas Motor Vehicle Board rejected a proposal from the Sons of Confederate Veterans for specialty license plates featuring the Confederate flag. Governor Perry, who was the governor at the time, supported this verdict, and he said, "We don't need to be scratching up at old wounds." This further displays that the Confederate flag is preventing the United States from healing from wounds that it sustained during the nation's early years. And furthermore, the simple fact that Perry was the governor of Texas, which is a southern state that used to be part of the Confederacy, and he's still able to see that the Confederate flag is affecting the South in a way that's dividing it from the rest of the country, speaks for itself. The second argument for why the Confederate flag should not be allowed on government property is that it's a symbol of white supremacy. This is not just my opinion, but it's well established. According to ADL.org, organizations such as the Sons of Confederate Veterans adopted the flag as a symbol of Southern heritage. but the flag also served as a potent symbol of slavery and white supremacy, which has caused it to be very popular among white supremacist groups in the 20th and 21st centuries. This is the Confederate flag's full meaning, and the negative undertones have been known to the public, so we cannot ignore it. Because flying such a flag next to the American flag, which has ideals such as freedom and prosperity for all, is quite frankly hypocritical. It also doesn't reflect the people that make up the United States. The United States is a melting pot of so many different cultures and backgrounds. Therefore, flying a flag that represents the complete opposite of our ideals is not the America that we are or are striving to be. Last but not least, the Confederate flag should not be allowed on government property because it can result in negative implications. Like I stated in my introduction, I went to Mississippi during spring break, and specifically we went to the courthouse where Emmett Till's murderers were found not guilty. And when we went up to the courthouse, it was so surreal to see that. First, as I said before also, I didn't know that Mississippi's flag had the Confederate flag on it. So one of the students asked our tour guide, is it really such a big deal that Mississippi has a Confederate flag on its state flag, because we all know that the Confederacy was a vital part for the state's history? And our tour guide said yes, because having the Confederate flag on the state's flag has direct negative implications. For example, companies have expressed interest in coming to Mississippi for multiple reasons. Have it be that the land is cheap and there's a larger workforce, but the mere fact that the Confederate flag is so closely tied with the state, it pushes these companies away because they don't want the negative backlash that surely will come to them for being in a state that proudly hangs the Confederate flag in an official capacity. And it was just very unfortunate to see, because I was there and I got to see it myself, how jobs were really badly needed. We were in Sumner. The city was Sumner, and Sumner is in Tallahatchie County. And Tallahatchie County is one of the poorest counties in the Delta, and the Delta is one of the poorest areas of Mississippi, and Mississippi itself is one of the poorest states in the United States. So it was just sad how it was just sad to see how the idea of holding on to this flag was affecting so many people, and a lot of the people probably don't know about this. South Carolina's state representative herself said that Mississippi hurts itself financially by displaying the battle emblem, which she said is a relic of a different time. It is a new South. The economic development opportunities that Mississippi is missing out on, you don't even know it, but it's costing citizens jobs. This coming from a person who is an elected representative solidifies how real it is that this flag is directly correlated with negative implications for Mississippi's economy. Because of these reasons, I think that the federal government should prohibit the Confederate flag from being hung on government property. What they should do, in my opinion, is create a bipartisan committee that should investigate every single flag that's hung on government property. They have to look into the history and make sure that the flag isn't the Confederate flag or any version of the Confederate flag. Have it be from a past time, maybe a version that's not as well known, so it's been under the radar, but it still needs to be investigated. When thinking proactively, I can see how a common argument that will pop up likely will be, but states have their own rights. Yes, this is true, but states cannot ignore federal legislation. For example, integration of schools was an order made by the federal government, and states weren't allowed to pick and choose if they were going to abide by this or not. This argument, usually in our country's past, has an insidious side to it, as shown by this quote from Vox. States' rights have just been the cover under which generations of Southerners have argued for slavery, lynching, Jim Crow laws, and the proud display of the Confederate flag. Therefore, we cannot accept this excuse any longer that states this excuse from states that would refuse this type of mandate. In conclusion, prohibiting the flag from being flown on government property will have overall positive implications for the United States as a whole. If not done, certain economies will continually be hurt. The United States will be divided and not inclusive, and we will be allowing a symbol that directly contradicts with our nation's ideals. Let's make sure the United States is actually aligned with its ideals so when people look back at our time, they see progress. Thank you.